You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Every week I try, like in the waning seconds before we're going to actually start the podcast, I always try to think of like a new, unique way to start the podcast, and I got nothing this week. I got nothing. No snazzy, snappy way to come on. Just, hey, hi. Hey, it's a minor league baseball podcast, the show before the show. Hi, everyone. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Tyler. Actually, you know what? Maybe this is the time, because we've been talking about this, trying to keep things fresh and stuff.
Yeah.
We've been talking about changing the music. We're not going to do it this week. You already can hear that. It's the same old music. But yeah, if you have a very strong take on our entrance podcast music, yeah, let us know, and we'll keep an eye out for new stuff. You know, it's a new season we're entering. What is this? It's going to be our third
season of the podcast.
Yeah, so you know it might be time for a freshening up of things.
I'm not sidelining the horns section. Apologies to our Horns fans.
Hey, as a former trumpet player, I do take great exception to
Were you really?
We should only be trumpets from now on, I think.
Huh.
There's all sorts of trumpet jokes I can make, but
it's going to go invite us right in for tea and strumpets. But yeah, so we that is one thing that we were thinking of doing. So in lieu of me having a witty lead into the podcast, we actually provided you some information right out of the gate on episode number 94 of the Show Before the Show podcast. In New York City, he is Sam Dykstra. In Denver, Colorado, I am Tyler Maughan, and we welcome you into this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. Got a lot of good stuff coming up for you today. Miami Marlins prospect Thomas Jones will join us to discuss what it was like being a very highly recruited high school football player, signing with the Marlins as a third-round pick out of last June's draft out of high school. We'll talk a lot of good stuff with Thomas Jones. That's coming up as we break out the Marlins organization here in our final podcast of the month of January. And before we get into three strikes for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show, you can get in touch with the podcast at MILB.com. Sam is on Twitter. He is at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I am on Twitter at Tyler Maughan. You can contact us all there. And you can find the Show Before the Show on iTunes, on the Stitcher app. You can find us at MILB.com/podcast. And that's it, and that's all. Get in touch. Give us a rating and a review and a subscription, and we would very much appreciate it. And that gets us started on Three Strikes for episode number 94. Trade news. We got a couple of deals to discuss, and the big one went down earlier this week as we quote from this story written by, I wrote it, at MILB.com. Quote, Jose De Leon is swapping Dodger blue for a lighter shade. MLB.com's number 33 overall prospect is headed from Los Angeles to the Tampa Bay Rays in a straight swap for Major League infielder Logan Forsythe, the team said on Monday. Recording this on Wednesday, so that deal is official. And it is just a one-for-one trade, which makes it kind of interesting. There were a lot of rumors. The Dodgers wanting to shore up the infield. We're going for Brian Dozier from the Minnesota Twins. They balked at the Twins' asking price, which reportedly was Jose De Leon and another top-level prospect. Instead, they go for Logan Forsythe, but we're going to talk about the minor league aspect of this. Jose De Leon goes over to the Tampa Bay Rays. That is another, what the Rays believe is a frontline arm in a rotation that is already pretty good, and with some pretty good talent on the way. This is an interesting deal from the Rays' perspective. Very quietly, the Rays seem like they're kind of rebuilding what made them successful in that successful stint they had in the mid to late 2000s and into the early 2010s.
Yeah, definitely. Because, what we thought about for that team, those good Rays teams, was they had a really strong pitching staff. And you look at this pitching staff that's potentially going to Durham this year, and it's exciting. I mean, it's not popping with aces. It's not necessarily, top of the line, kind of like what I would compare to Indianapolis last year. Indianapolis had both Tyler Glasnow and Tyone. Those are guys you could envision as number 2, number 3, even ace types if everything clicks right. I don't think the Rays exactly have that caliber that's heading to Durham this year, but you just look down the list. De Leon's heading there. That's pretty much set unless he breaks camp with Tampa Bay. You got Jacob Faria, their number 6 prospect. He's probably headed there after spending time in Durham last year. Their number 7 prospect, Ji Wei Hu, is probably heading there. Jamie Schultz led the International League in strikeouts last year with 163. Unless something happens, he's probably headed back to Durham. So that's already 4 really good starters. Then you got Taylor Guerrieri, who was a first-round pick way back when. He's probably heading to AAA Durham. There's like 5 or 6 really solid starting pitching prospects in that system. And as much as we talk about the Braves in terms of them just acquiring arms and, pitching development sometimes can be throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping one of them sticks, or, if you're lucky, 2 or 3 stick in your rotation. The Rays have a little bit of that, but it's close. These are all guys going to be at AAA. De Leon's the one I'm most excited about, obviously. But even ahead of him at the major league level, Chris Archer is going to be the ace of that staff next year. He's young. He's under control for a little while longer. Blake Snell looks like he's ready to break out after, settling himself in Major League Baseball last year. Jake Odorizzi seems, as solid a 3, number 4 starter as you're going to find. So you're just laying this foundation, and then Brent Honeywell, seems ready to burst open this year with the potential major league debut in the second half of 2017. So this Rays team isn't exactly, a favorite in the AL East. They have an outside shot if everything clicks to maybe get a wild card spot. But by acquiring De Leon, what we already thought was, that's kind of interesting if things work out. Now it gets even more so on our radar in terms of arms alone. Just to focus on De Leon himself, a lot of you guys know him as a guy who was very dominant last year in AAA Oklahoma City. 2.61 ERA in 16 starts there, 111 strikeouts in 86 1/3 innings. Just a really deceptive delivery. He does a really good job at hiding the ball. So if you're a minor league hitter, that can sometimes be tough to pick up. His fastball can be really good. His changeup at times can be really good. He'll sit in the mid-90s, and then that changeup gives teams another look. He's got a slider. Some say he also has a curveball. Breaking ball, not nearly as good as those 2 other offerings, so he's going to need to kind of work on those if he's going to find the results. Had some bumpy rides over 4 starts in the majors last year with the Dodgers. Posted a 6.35 ERA in 17 innings over those 4 starts. And I know some people have pointed out, the Dodgers really needed starting pitching help last year. If they really trusted De Leon, they wouldn't have waited so long to go to him. And others have pointed out that if they were so willing to give him up in Dozier deals and not somebody else like Yadier Alvarez or Cody Bellinger, then that's kind of a sign in how they viewed him. I think the rest of the industry is still high on De Leon. He can be a number 3 starter. I think his floor is as a number 4. He's definitely a starter. It's just how good is he going to be? Now the Rays have him under control for many more years. Swapping Logan Forsythe, who, for all intents and purposes, is a fairly decent second baseman. Was worth 2.8 WAR according to Fangraphs last year, 4 WAR before that. He's definitely Brian Dozier light at second base. Definitely doesn't have the pop, but he did hit 20 homers last year. I think they have him under contract for next year with a team option after that. So essentially you're swapping 2 years of a solid second baseman for many more years of Jose De Leon, who, we don't know exactly what he's going to be yet, but his ceiling, I think, is a little higher than what we would consider just an average second baseman.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the interesting components of this deal, the Dodgers, every year it seems like they're trying to make the 1 or 2 moves to push them over the top, get them back to the World Series. They obviously haven't experienced World Series success in 30 years, but they've been right on that cusp over the last several. Julio Urias, they think, has a higher ceiling than Jose De Leon. Walker Buehler, I think, is a guy that people haven't yet really begun to talk about just because his professional experience has been so limited. But the Dodgers are very high on the young guys that they have, and high enough that they felt like they could part with one of them. You mentioned a bunch of the guys who are kind of in the mix in that Rays system, and especially in that Durham rotation. Blake Snell and Brent Honeywell really stand out. You also mentioned Jake Odorizzi at the major league level. You add those guys to Chris Archer, Alex Cobb, that's a really good mix. And De Leon now slots in right kind of in the heart of that group. But furthermore, what this also does from the Rays perspective is it opens up a chance for guys to make an impact at the major league level in filling the spot vacated by Logan Forsythe, too, because we think so much about what this means for Jose De Leon. This potentially could mean a lot for Willy Adames. It potentially, and he's the top prospect in the organization right now, potentially could mean a lot for somebody who I think a lot of people have probably forgotten about, but somebody like Daniel Robertson, who's a very versatile infielder acquired from the Oakland Athletics, and was a prospect who was really high on a lot of people's boards up until a couple of seasons ago. Last year spent 118 games with AAA Durham, batted .259 with a .713 OPS. But those guys are close. Willy Adames last season, another really, really good year with Montgomery at AA, 132 games, batted .274 and 802 OPS, top prospect in the organization. So it isn't just what does this mean for Jose De Leon. There are moving pieces of this puzzle elsewhere that could get their shot because of this deal. For De Leon, I know one thing that Neil Solondz, who's one of the radio voices of the Tampa Bay Rays, one of the things that he said in a video that he posted to Twitter that the Rays retweeted was the Rays very much like De Leon's strikeout stuff. Jose struck out over 12 batters per 9 in the minor leagues. They feel like that can translate. It might not necessarily translate to that high of a rate, but they like that strikeout stuff. They like the power stuff. And more than that, I think an overarching component to this story is just what a job the Dodgers did to discover Jose De Leon, turn him into a prospect, and then get value in exchange for him. Jose De Leon was a 24th round pick out of Southern in 2013. He signed for $35,000. So this was not Julio Urias in terms of being a massive international signing and a big coup in the money given to him and the bidding war won. Not only that, he also wasn't Walker Buehler. I mean, this isn't a guy who went in the first round, but this is a guy that was uncovered by the Dodgers, selected and signed for a very affordable price, and then was turned into an upper echelon pitching prospect, and that's really impressive. So kudos to the Dodgers, their scouting and player development staff for what they were able to do with Jose De Leon. Kudos to the Rays in acquiring a guy like that, and I'm very excited for Jose De Leon because one of the things that the Rays made sure to stress, and I thought this was really cool, but Rays general manager Eric Neander said, quote, "We're really excited to acquire someone we consider one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. Tremendous makeup, tremendous character. The personality on and off the field is something we're really excited about having." And we've talked about that a lot with Jose De Leon. He's an infectious guy to talk to. His enthusiasm really gets to you in any sort of conversation that you have with him, and his ability to never stop wanting to get better, I think is really admirable and serves you well when you go to an organization like the Rays that kind of always need that edge of, we're never going to be able to compete with the Yankees and the Red Sox money-wise. We got to be able to beat them in other capacities. So this seems like a good deal for all sides. And for Jose De Leon, he's really, really close to being at that spot where it's, all right, break out, see what you can do at the major league level, and here's how it's going to shake down.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out kind of the Dodgers side here too, because they're obviously trying to compete with the Cubs right now. I mean, it's pretty clear the Cubs are the best team in the National League. Dodgers a close second, for all intents and purposes, but they have to stay in that race with, if they're going to get home field advantage or whatever, looking at another NLCS between those two teams. So, their biggest hole is probably second base, and if that's your hole and you need to fill it, you might overpay, and you're going to have to give up somebody like Jose De Leon. I'm sure they're happy that they didn't have to give up, Cody Bellinger, Yadier or Alvarez or Walker Buehler, but you're still going to. They probably paid a higher price for Logan Forsythe than other teams would have, and that's a luxury they have.
Strike two, Sam, is kind of a similar place for a franchise in wanting to get over the hump. The Miami Marlins making a deal with the Cincinnati Reds, shipping 3 of their top 20 prospects to the Reds in exchange for veteran pitcher Dan Straley. It's kind of crazy that we call Dan Straley a veteran. It seems like just a few years ago he was that plucky up-and-comer with the Oakland A's. But Dan Straley goes to the Miami Marlins, a team that really believes it's on the verge of competing for a division title and postseason play in the National League East. That deal sends Luis Castillo and Austin Bryce, both right-handers, along with outfielder Isaiah White from Miami to Cincinnati. That's a pretty hefty payload to acquire a guy like Dan Straley. But again, this is an organization in the Marlins that feels like they're very close. And from the Reds' perspective, you keep getting strength in numbers, acquiring prospects for a system that has been down in recent years and especially needs to be strong to compete, like you said, in a division with the best team in baseball right now in the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, this deal was kind of a head-scratcher for me because, I think Straley had a good year by all intents and purposes, 3.76 ERA, really solidified himself. I think he was one of the stories of the year for Cincinnati next to, obviously Joey Votto and Adam Duvall's breakout year. So what was a down year for the Reds, at least he could be pointed at as something of hope. But you look at his peripherals and it just crumbles very quickly. So, I talked about that 3.76 ERA and his 14-8 record, and you think, all right, that's a solid season. His FIP was significantly higher at 4.88, which is not good.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
And his BABIP, which, we've talked about it on the podcast before, I've written plenty about, your average BABIP is usually 300. Anything significantly higher or above or lower than that, you start to think luck is involved or there must be other factors.
And that stands for batting average on balls in play, for if you haven't heard it before.
Yes. No, thank you for reminding. His BABIP was 239, which is incredibly low, and you would have to think that's going to normalize going forward. So, the Reds probably thought, this is when we have an opportunity to swap him for some prospects, some legit prospects. And, the Marlins were willing to take the bait. The Marlins this offseason, their kind of story has been we need to acquire starting pitching and get as much depth there as we can. So they go and get Straley. They trade Luis Castillo, who becomes the Reds' number 8 prospect, which might not make you think much, but that's a good Red system. And he's also going to go soaring, I think, when rankings are updated later this year. He's already numbered 94 in Keith Law's rankings on ESPN.com. Go check that side out. It's for ESPN Insider, so I don't want to give too much away. But he's a top 100 prospect according to Keith Law. There are all sorts of rumors right after the deal that the Marlins, when they were looking to make deals last year, teams wanted Castillo straight up for major leaguers, and they weren't willing to go that route. And all of a sudden, they're willing to do him and 2 other pieces. For Dan Straley, it just seems confounding. So what do the Reds get in Castillo? They get a guy with a really good fastball, a 70-grade fastball on the 20 to 80 scale, posted a 2.26 ERA between Class A Advanced Jupiter and Double A Jacksonville last year, struck out 103, only walked 25 and 131 in 2/3 innings. So really improved his control last year, held batters to a 219 average between those 2 stops. He's 24, so he's a little old, certainly for the Class A Advanced level. Going to be even on the older side of the curve at Double A if he starts next year in Pensacola. But with his stuff, with his plus fastball, at the very least, he has a chance to be a pretty good reliever. Even better than that, he could be a 4 or 5 starter. And that's essentially what Dan Straley is right now. So to get him, and all the years of control for him, that's Dan Straley's ceiling, I should say. To get Castillo, who has that ceiling and has a pretty good likelihood of hitting it, it's just a little confounding to me. But, that they're prospects. And for right now, Dan Straley is pitching the majors. That's what the Marlins are looking for, and they were willing to pay a little extra to get it.
By the way, you may remember the name Luis Castillo from last July when he was sent to the San Diego Padres as part of that 7-player deal that traded Andrew Kastner and Colin Ray to Miami. Ray then went out, pitched for the Marlins in his debut, went 3 1/3 innings, and then suffered an elbow injury. The Padres took him back and actually returned Castillo to the Marlins. He had been briefly assigned to the AA San Antonio Missions. He went back to the Marlins organization. It's a little bit odd, and I think if you're Luis Castillo, you probably think, okay, I get it. You don't want me here. But he is finally out of the organization. And I also thought it was interesting. Danny Wild wrote up this story for the site and embedded a tweet from Isaiah White. Isaiah White, the outfielder in the deal who spent last season with the Batavia Muck Dogs in the New York Penn League. Somebody tweeted at him, quote, "Save the Marlins, please," at White_Zeke. And Isaiah White retweeted that and said, "I'm out of here too, bro," which I thought was kind of interesting and maybe gives a little bit of an indication of what he was feeling being in the system. Don't want to put too much stock in that, but I thought it was kind of an interesting thing to see that from that perspective. So that deal is done. Dan Straley goes to the Miami Marlins, and 3 prospects head the other way to the Cincinnati Reds. Finally, on 3 strikes for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, American League Central projections are out. Sam got a chance to break down what things could look like for a division that has produced the last 3 American League pennant winners in the Cleveland Indians and the Kansas City Royals. This year, there are a lot of prospects that have gone into that division, especially, most notably, with the Chicago White Sox organization with Yoan Moncada and Lucas Giolito and Michael Kopech and basically everybody else. But who really stands out to you in this AL Central for 2017?
Yeah, so the question I kind of wanted to answer was, two major questions. One was, the Indians were so close to winning a World Series last year. What are their biggest holes? And you kind of look at them after they signed Edwin Encarnacion, it might be in the outfield, specifically, kind of center field. I think Taylor Naquin had a good year, but nobody really expects him to kind of carry that forward. Michael Brantley has all sorts of injury issues. Lonnie Chisenhall isn't exactly a long-term answer in right. So what exactly are they going to do in the outfield? And it seems pretty simple. Bradley Zimmer is their top prospect. He's pretty promising. He's got one of the best combinations of both power and speed in all of minor league baseball. He finished up last year at AAA Columbus. How close does these Steamer 600 projections expect him to be? And the answer was, I got to say, a little disappointing. They thought he would be worth, if given 600 plate appearances, just 0.5 WAR. So that's certainly not going to push him. If the Indians kind of agree with those, they see him getting 16 homers and 27 stolen bases, which would certainly be solid. But he would hit only 226 with a 309 on base percentage and a 370 slugging. He certainly struggled last year after getting the call to AAA Columbus, specifically with strikeouts. He finished with 171 strikeouts. That was the 12th most in all of the minors, or a strikeout rate of 30.7%. Steamer thinks if he were to get a full season of the Major League Ball next year, he would strike out in 31.5% of his at-bats. And that would have ranked 3rd highest last year among major leaguers, behind only Chris Davis with 32.9% and Chris Carter at 32%. He's also struggled against left-handers pretty much everywhere he's gone. So that's something that needs work. I don't think that left-hander split necessarily goes into Steamer projections, but with the way he performed at Columbus, kind of ended, without much power, that went into it. That kind of hurt him a little bit. There's no reason to believe that he can't improve that. He can't come back to Columbus next year, hit around 300 again, hit double digits in home runs and be pushing 30, 40 stolen bases, and push his way to Cleveland by the end of the year. It's just at this point in time, the snapshot says, the Indians should kind of be looking elsewhere. And Lonnie Chisenhall is his closest competition, and he was projected for 1.1 WAR, as I think he was the 5th ranked Indians outfielder according to WAR, according to Steamer. So they don't need to push Zimmer right away, and these projections kind of back that up, which is interesting too. As much as we want to write these projection stories of this guy is definitely ready, why is he not up yet? It is always not fun, but interesting to see who we should kind of pump the brakes on. And to that same effect, that the second thing I wanted to look at, and I'll be a little briefer on this, was you mentioned, the White Sox got a lot of talent this offseason between both the Adam Eaton and Chris Sale deals, picking up Lucas Giolito, Michael Kopech, Yohan Moncada, among others, and Reynaldo Lopez, the other notable name, acquired him in those deals. So who among that group is most major league ready? Steamer still believes, that Lucas Giolito could be that guy. They're not exactly the rosiest of numbers. Nobody's going to really expect him to be on Chicago's opening day roster. They have him for 4.93 ERA and worth 1.3 WAR over 200 innings pitched. That's still good enough to put him in the mix for the top 5 projected starting pitchers for the White Sox, but obviously they want him to come up with much more confidence and much readier than to put up an ERA close to 5. Steamer is not a big believer in Moncada quite yet. It actually has him at negative .1 WAR. I think his major league time, in which he was striking out left and right, really hurt him there. He also didn't have great fielding numbers at that point in that limited time, so that hurt him. You can definitely expect him to kind of push his way, especially if he's starting the year at AAA Charlotte, which is just a masher's delight to play in. Expect him to grow on his power there, and I'm sure he will beat these projections, at least in terms of WAR. But for right now, don't expect pretty much anybody in that deal to start opening day in the majors.
So, American League Central projections up now at MILB.com. That is the third. Is that the third installment of prospect projections?
It is the third. Yep.
So we've got NL Central next and then the West.
Right, exactly.
Madness. And then it's baseball season. Kind of. Sort of.
Kind of. Then we got other
Then
things.
it's close, at least.
Yeah. Then we got our own farm system rankings.
Yeah.
Which I'll tease for now, just saying that we're doing them again.
File it away. Put a pin in it.
Yeah, file it. Yeah.
Put it in the old back drawer. Back drawer?
That's for next month.
That didn't make any sense. Yeah, we'll talk about that next month. Don't use back drawer in a sentence. If you're somebody who's listening to this show and thinking, I never heard that phrase before, it's because it doesn't exist, and I just made it up. So that'll do it for this week's edition of 3 Strikes on episode number 94. Coming up, the Miami Marlins organization is where we are headed next. Thomas Jones, outfielder and third-round selection out of Lawrence, South Carolina. Thomas Jones joins the show to discuss 2016, his professional debut, 2017, and beyond. Coming up next. Well, just about 7 months ago, the 84th overall selection in the 2016 Major League Baseball first-year player draft, the Miami Marlins selected outfielder Thomas Jones from Lawrence, South Carolina, and that is where we find our guest for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. Thomas, welcome. How are you?
Good.
First professional season in the books. First professional offseason is nearly in the books. You just told us a minute ago you're about a month away from heading to Florida for your first ever spring training. What are the emotions? What are the nerves like at this stage? I mean, you still got a little bit of time, but how excited are you to kind of get this thing underway for your first turn through a full season in pro ball?
I'm really excited. I'm just looking forward, just seeing how things are going to be. I've asked, tons of questions to people who have already been in spring training, probably in the second or third season. So I've just been asking many questions, just saying how it's going to be. But I really just want to have a taste for myself and how I'm going to experience this. Experience my first, spring training, how it's going to be.
Yeah, and this is your first off season too. So
yes.
So what has it been like preparing for a season? I mean, this time last year you were in school, so it's a different animal. But what has the off season prep been like?
I'm about to say, because right now I'm training with a couple guys. I'm training with a guy in the Colorado Rockies organization and a couple guys from the Reds organization. So we train every morning, and it's I try to get a sense of how they're training. So they come back, they provide me with tactics on how the ways they perform on the field. And so it's basically like I'm learning every day, and then again, I'm getting better at the same time. So it's kind of like I'm still in Florida. Well, I'm having that one-on-one coaching, but it's like I'm back in South Carolina where I'm having the same thing just by guys who have been there, 3 years and 4 years in the major league program.
Thomas last year was the Gatorade South Carolina Player of the Year in his senior year in high school, and a multi-sport guy. As a football recruit, Thomas, I know you had offers from a lot of different programs and decided actually to commit to play baseball at Vanderbilt, which is as good of a program as you can commit to. What was before we talk about the transition from high school to pro ball, what was the recruiting process like, and how did it play into kind of knowing that you were going to be drafted, knowing you were probably going to be drafted pretty high? How did you weigh all that stuff, in addition to the fact that you're a senior in high school, so you're still having to deal with school, with academics and all that kind of stuff? What was that like last year?
It was really, I wouldn't say it was overwhelming, because, I mean, I kind of enjoyed it, but a little bit, but I would say football, I mean, it came in a little bit more, because I was always looked at as a high prospect in baseball. But then my junior year in football season, I had an amazing season. So a lot of schools came at me. I was like, Duke was my first football offer, then North Carolina, then Wake Forest, then I got Clemson, Notre Dame. So it was like all coming at me at one time. And I was like, well, baseball, that's still my number one sport. And so I was like, wow, like, how can I, like, weigh this? And so then, baseball season came around. Then I had a lot of professional scouts popping at my game. And it was like they were there every single game. So I was like, well, by that time I already had made my decision just to play just baseball strictly at Vanderbilt. And, that's what I really wanted to do. That was my heart set to that, because I was like, football, I love football in high school, but I just don't see myself 5 years down the road playing in college or in the NFL somewhere. So I was like, baseball, that's what really my heart is at. So I just stayed with baseball, and I was like, well, I'm getting better. So I was like, I think baseball may be my shot.
So how close did you actually ever come to football? I mean, when all those offers are coming in?
Yeah, honestly, it was really close, because I know Clemson, they gave me I was really close to committing Clemson my 10th grade year. Then Clemson came senior year over the summer. They was like, we can give you both, and I was like, I mean, at the edge of just going to Clemson to do both. And honestly, they just got the college national championship this year. So I was looking back, I was like, wow, I could have had a ring on my finger, but I mean, like I said, it's all good.
Thomas, let me ask you this question, and I feel like I know the answer to it already, but are you one of those dudes who's just good at everything? Like, if you go bowling and it's like your first time bowling, do you bowl like a 250? Like, are you one of those guys who just infuriates everybody around you with how good you are at all sports?
I mean, I kind of am. I kind of put myself in that boat a little bit. I don't know. It's like, I'm competitive and stuff. So it's like, if I'm gonna do something, I might as well give it my all, and somehow I just come out being pretty good. I don't play basketball anymore, but people always ask me, they were like, did you play basketball any in high school? I was like, I haven't. I stopped playing in middle school, so I'm.
But you could probably dunk, kind of guy. I bet you could probably dunk anyway.
Oh yeah, I can do that with ease.
Yeah. Well, speaking for all of us unathletic people out here, we all hate you for that. So
yeah, just
so
share.
Now spread the wealth around a little bit.
Yeah. So when you were saying you were definitely baseball was your favorite sport, what was it about baseball that you were particularly drawn to, other than just being really good at it?
Honestly, it was just, I don't know, it was just a love of the game. I mean, I played it. Honestly, I've been playing baseball my entire life. I started playing football in 6th grade. So I really wasn't playing football that long at all. And it was just, I don't know, I just love being on base. I just love running, and then being on base and like just having that threat on being on base and hitting the ball somewhere and getting a double or a triple. So that's one thing I really love, just really, it's a patient game, that's something. I'm a patient dude, I'm real laid back. So that was like my game. It was for me.
And then you get drafted, obviously, like Tyler said earlier, the 84th pick, 3rd round. Then you have to go through a negotiation process. And as a guy who committed to a really good baseball school in Vandy, how close were you to honoring that commitment and going the college route?
It was close. I was, cause me. I'm in a family where I have a lot of school teachers here in my family, and it's, that's one thing. Education is always comes first. That was always growing up. Me in my household. Go to college. Going to college. And for me to bypass school, it was I was like kind of looking back at it like how like wow, I did that. But I at the end I know I can always go back. But still, I was just, it was really close. I was talking to Coach Corbin pretty much, every day, leading up to the day where I made my decision, But it was, like I said, it was really tough, and it was to the point where I was like, well, I'm done with negotiating. I'm just gonna go to school. I was at the point where I was gonna tell my agent that, but I stuck through it. I'm here where I'm at, and I'm happy.
Thomas, when you got started in pro ball, you make your professional debut August 2nd. And the thing I liked a minute ago, you said, I'm a patient guy. That kind of played itself out as you got going into your career. I think 10 games or so in, you're a 172 hitter. And a week later, you're batting 256. To kind of get your feet wet for that first taste, you really only get a month of it. But what was the transition like when you finally got signing process out of the way? You're not going to go to Vandy. You kind of know it's full bore into the Marlins system to get to focus on baseball and then really turn it on toward the end of that first professional season. How was that transition period?
It was a big transition, because I really had to get in my mind that, this is a job now. I can't, this is an everyday thing. So that was one of my major transitions. Also, like you said, being patient, because sitting out like that whole month, just practicing on my own one-on-one with coaches. There was another thing I had to deal with, just trying to get back in the routine, because my last high school game was like in April. So I sat out that whole time without seeing live baseball at all. And so I had to get back into that routine. And then again, being on the baseball standpoint, the physical point, I had to get adjusted to the pitch. And, you don't see that kind of velocity in high school that you see in the rookie league. So that was one of my biggest transitions, and then again, you can't get so hard on yourself, because that was one of my things. I was big on results throughout my whole life. So, and they weren't coming. So I couldn't be hard on myself. So I just really had to be patient with myself through it all.
So what was the biggest thing you took away from those 19 games that you spent in the GCL? What did you learn there that you've kind of put into work this offseason?
I would say really really incorporating, just really being a threat with my hitting. That was one of my biggest things. Being consistent. And so, like with me, that's one thing I'm really working on now. My consistency. Having the same exact swing. The low. Backside. That's one thing I'm really bearing down on this off season that I learned from the GCL league.
Well, this is the last one I wanted to ask was, now you're entering what could be your first full season. We'll see, where you're going to be assigned come spring. But, Marlins fans don't really know you that much yet, other than what they barely got to see on a stat sheet from the GCL. So what are you hoping to show them in this first full season, now that you know what to kind of expect?
I'm really just trying to show, that I'm a cool dude, but then again, I'm a hard worker on the field. I'm gonna give it all that I got. I'm trying to, we can win every game. We try to win every game, but if it comes down to a situation that I have to get that hit, hopefully I'm the guy that comes through or make that big catch in the outfield. Get a run in coming from second base. That's just one thing I'm trying to provide to the plate. So that's one thing I want to get out to the fans, Marlins fans.
Thomas, last thing for me. I know last year, kind of early on in your high school season, you tweaked your hamstring, I think it was a little bit, and then, get into pro ball, healthy, feeling good toward the end of the year. You had a very long year last year, just from the start of the high school season through the end of the pro season. Training for a professional season is so different, and we talked to a lot of first-year guys about this. How do you prepare your body for, if you're headed to short season ball, 70 games, but if you make a big leap, you get a taste of full season ball, knowing that you're going to kind of go from February, March through September. What's the off-season training regimen been like to make sure that you're sturdy for that?
I know we right now where I'm training at Greenville, we do a lot of lower body exercises and stuff that like builds up, also making it stronger. But then again, just keeping it in shape. And that's one thing, because like I said, like you were saying earlier, I had the hamstring problem. That's out of the system now. But still, I want to make it stronger. I want to get that feeling out, the tightness, get all that away. But it's basically, just taking care of your body, because I know going into this long season, that's one of the main things, you have to do is take care of your body. And so that's one thing I have to get used to, because being in high school, I wasn't used to that. It was just, play a game on Tuesday, then Friday. now it's an everyday thing. So it's a different world. So you have to really take care of your body and eat right, drink right, and do all that stuff.
He is the number 7 prospect in the Miami Marlins organization, 6'4", 195, a run tool that grades out at a 70 on the MLB.com 20 to 80 scouting scale, and a very exciting prospect coming up in the Miami system. And, by the way, as we learned, don't challenge him to a dunk contest or bowling. And Thomas Jones, our guest on this week's edition of the show. Thomas, this has been great, man, and congrats on last season, getting your feet under you, and best of luck in 2017.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, there's been a sports market in the news a lot in recent weeks and months, and joining us to discuss what it could mean for the minor league side of that now major league market in a lot of ways is one Benjamin Hill. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Tyler.
So Las Vegas, the old city of brotherly love. No, not what it's called. City of Angels. Not what it's called either. Either way, Las Vegas got one major league sports team. Either way, either or, whichever. Sin City there, Joey Gallo City, Bryce Harper City got one major league sports franchise, which has struggled a little bit with figuring out if its name and logo are actually legally acceptable. But the Vegas Golden Knights of the National Hockey League may be getting a second in the perhaps future Las Vegas Raiders of the National Football League. But Las Vegas, as of right now, its largest team coming into this year on the sporting calendar, at least in its classification, was the Las Vegas 51s, AAA affiliate of the New York Mets in the Pacific Coast League. And they are in the mix a little bit now. There is discussion about what the next step is for the Las Vegas 51s. They've played at Cashman Field since 1983, which is sort of an oddly historic ballpark in minor league baseball. It's hosted a lot of AAA things, championships and World Series and home run derbies and things that used to be on ESPN. But it's an old facility, especially by PCL standards, and there's been a push for a while to get something new in that market. Ben, what's the latest in Vegas?
Yeah, well, it's been no secret that Cashman Field, as you mentioned, the longtime home of the Las Vegas 51s, is pretty much unacceptable to everyone involved right now in terms of its, quote, deteriorating condition. The ownership doesn't like it. The team definitely doesn't like it. The Pacific Coast League does not like it. But no one wants to give up on Las Vegas as a market, so they stick with it and probably make some exceptions where they have to in order to keep playing in Vegas and keep playing at Cashman Field. In 2013, the Howard Hughes Corporation purchased a stake in the team, and that was with the intent, a longer-term intent, the hopeful intent to, of course, get some public money as part of the deal and go to nearby Summerlin, Nevada, and build a new stadium. And that has gone back and forth for a couple of years. Nothing obviously has come to fruition yet. But in the wake of an NHL team coming to Vegas, probably the NFL, there is a renewed momentum for establishing what the 51 situation will be as well. And the latest proposal is land donated by the Howard Hughes Corporation in Summerlin, and that will be adjacent to the practice facility for the new NHL team.
By the way, is that the Howard Hughes Corporation, like that Howard Hughes? Like
that Howard Hughes is dead.
The Spruce Goose, but it's like his long-lasting corporation?
Right. It's
wow.
And it's not based in Vegas, actually, but obviously Howard Hughes has Vegas connections, or had Vegas connections, when he was alive and growing his beard out to down to his knees and watching movies for months at a time. And,
leaving jars of urine on the top floors of his hotels. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of my Howard Hughes references come from that episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not the great movie, The Aviator, not like books on the guy. No, just the Simpsons episode.
That's like so many things in life. Your Simpsons is their first reference to many things in culture.
That's true.
Or the strongest.
Like the Albuquerque
all
guy?
the best things. Yeah, exactly.
So, what we've talked about this before, I think in kind of reference to like New Orleans. Would this do the team any good? Moving the team outside the city proper. I mean, how easy would it be to get to Summerlin? I mean, what's the discussion around the location other than the fact that it would just be kind of free land?
Well, I think that's a big part of it, and I'm not very familiar with Summerlin, but obviously it's a populated area as well. And in a way, for a team like the 51s, you're not going to compete with the casinos directly, so you don't necessarily need to be completely lost in the mix of that. So I don't think that's seen as a major problem. The current facility is not close to the Strip. Cashman Field is closer to downtown Vegas, but really not in the heart of things either. So that's never been an aspect of Vegas professional baseball, being right in the thick of things. And I'll have to do some more research on Summerlin proper. It's not a community I know too much about.
So that's the latest news about Las Vegas, which is one of the most lucrative markets in the minor leagues. Has kind of been a discussion city for major league expansion from time to time. But with Vegas being so much in the sports realm, especially at the major league level as of late, some things going on there with NFL, NHL, one already there, one possibly on the way, and what that means for the PCL and the 51s. Let's move along. We do have some more promo calendars out. Teams are starting to get those things figured out. But there is one 2017 specific event that's really causing a stir on the minor league calendar, and it is the crazy eclipse that is coming in. When is this, August?
August 21st.
August 21st.
Coast-to-coast solar eclipse, the first in over 100 years.
The path of totality, we've discussed on the podcast before, and it seems like some teams are really early on kind of got locked in on this. Salem Kaiser, of course, comes to mind. They're going to play a morning game to play during the eclipse. They'll have an eclipse delay, and other teams have really started to jump on board the same bandwagon. We even had kind of a minor league Twitter feud over this week. What's going on with the path of totality thing?
Yeah, so let's kind of back up a little here. Last August, about a year prior to this upcoming eclipse, the Salem Kaiser Volcanoes announced they would be having an Eclipse Fest. The eclipse is moving. It's a coast-to-coast solar eclipse moving from west to east, and in a general southern direction too, as it makes its way through the day in an arc across the United States. And there's a 67-mile wide band called the Path of Totality, in which those areas, as the eclipse moves from west to east, will be in total darkness. And when the Salem Kaiser Volcanoes announced their Eclipse Fest with the built-in eclipse delay and all manner of things around it, they're actually making a long weekend out of the whole thing. The eclipse itself is on a Monday. I just thought it was the coolest idea. And even back then, I started looking at the Path of Totality and saying, what other minor league cities are in this Path of Totality? And I kept saying Path of Totality because it's a great thing, and then got angry that Path of Totality was a Korn album. And now I'm seeing my Google search results now result in more Eclipse things for Path of Totality instead of the 10th album by the band Korn. So things are moving in the right direction. But there are, in addition to Salem Kaiser, I found six other minor league teams in the Path of Totality. All but one is home for the day of the eclipse, and all but Idaho Falls, so they can't capitalize, unfortunately. But you have Bowling Green, Nashville, Columbia, Greenville, and which one am I forgetting? Columbia. Or did I say that one?
Did you say Nashville?
Nashville, Columbia, Bowling Green,
Greenville, Salem Kaiser.
Charleston. That's the one I'm missing.
There it is.
So while the Salem Kaiser are in the Pacific Northwest, there are a swath of teams further south and much further closer to the East Coast who also have the opportunity to capitalize on this. And thus far, we've seen Columbia commit to it, and they have a glow-in-the-dark logo, and that ties in naturally. And we haven't heard anything yet from Charleston, Nashville, or Bowling Green in terms of the specifics, but it seems like things are in the work for all of them. And even yesterday, I was happy to help kind of further along the first Path of Totality related Twitter feud probably in sports history.
In 100 years.
Yeah, in at least 100 years. Yeah, records don't go back that far. But we had Columbia Fireflies take a shot at Bowling Green, saying, well, Bowling Green would be great if you want 1 minute and 13 seconds of darkness. If you want 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you know where to find us. And, so that's because Columbia is closer to the center of the Path of Totality. And then Columbia wasn't done yet. They took a shot at Nashville, posting a map of the Path of Totality moving through South Carolina and a picture of the map of totality moving through Tennessee in order to point out that they are closer to the center of the Path of Totality than Nashville. So they have a longer duration of darkness, and they're closer to the center, and they're letting Bowling Green and Nashville both know that. And I just want to make it be known that any other Path of Totality related insults, I am happy to promote to the extent I can. And I think it's absolutely incredible that we're going to see at least 4 and maybe more, at least 5, I think, Eclipse-related promotions come August 21st. Writing about this world every year, it's always fun, but sometimes theme jerseys and bobbleheads can get a little boring. And then when you have something that's so unique and so specific to a specific date, time, and place, I think that's when it's really fun and exciting. And I haven't made my road trip schedule yet, but I'd love to be in a ballpark for an Eclipse delay and experience that in a communal way, in a very American way, and just something I think everyone who's going to be a part of this will remember forever. The Lexington Blowfish of the Coastal Plain League, a summer bat league, have announced Eclipse theme jerseys, and they already have announced those. So I'm hoping the affiliated teams that are going to take part in the Eclipse thing do something similar as well, and I imagine we'll see that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask in terms of what an Eclipse-related promotion looks like. Outside of just the oddity of having an Eclipse delay, and we were talking earlier about what that would look in a box score, or how that would look in a box score. What exactly are teams going to do with this?
I think it'll vary by team, but Salem Kaiser did this first, and as I said, they made it into an Eclipse Fest, and then Columbia went that way as well. So a lot of the details need to be filled in, but it's not just going to be the day of the Eclipse, but theming a whole weekend around it. I think we will see theme jerseys. In Salem Kaiser's case, because the game's in the morning, they have breakfast specials and mimosas. Also in Salem Kaiser's case, they pointed out that all these teams or all these cities that are in the Path of Totality, hotel rooms have been booked for literally years in a lot of cases. So they might open up the ballpark parking lot to RVs in order to accommodate more people. Might see things like that. And I'm sure we'll find more things as the time goes on and the blanks are filled in with this. And every additional thing you can add to a promo like this is great, but when at its core is being in a ballpark, one thing that'll be part of all the promotions is getting sunglasses, probably team logo special glasses that you need to wear when the eclipse is happening. Because even though you will be blanketed in near total darkness, I guess it's dangerous to look in that direction at the sun during that time when it's blocked out. I'm no astronomer whatsoever, but be careful out there during the eclipse.
And just one more thing to kind of look at on your blog. You wrote up just this week about how people should reach out to you about the designated eater shirts. We know you have the Ben's Biz t-shirts that are on sale in the Milb store, but it seems like you have designated eater shirts to give out too to anybody who's out there listening.
Yeah. Ben's Biz t-shirts available for all. Look it up. Google Ben's Biz t-shirts available in the Milb store, designed by Retro Brand. But as you may know, when I visit ballparks, I have a designated eater at every ballpark that I visit. An initiative that started in 2012 when I was diagnosed with celiac disease and thus could not eat the majority of ballpark food. So I have a designated eater every ballpark I go to. And part of getting the shirts made this year was also getting special designated eater shirts with a separate logo, also designed by Sean Kane, a great artist. And these shirts, also designed by Retro Brand, have never been available for sale, only available for designated eaters. So this is a very specific announcement. But right now, once those designated eater shirts were revealed, I only visited a few places before the season ended, but I kept hearing from people, usually on Twitter, like, hey, I was a designated eater in such and such year in such and such place. I want a shirt. And I kept saying, in the off season, I'll figure it out. So now I'm figuring it out. If you have been a designated eater or someone you know has been a designated eater, let them know right now through January 1st. Get in touch with me, benjamin.hill@mlb.com, and tell me you are a designated eater, what your address is, what your shirt size is, and I'll send you a shirt gratis.
Did you say January 1st?
January 31st.
31st.
I was talking so fast, sometimes words fly by. I don't even know if I said them or not. But that's just a very specific announcement, but I want to get the word out there. And I've been putting it on Twitter. I have a blog post about it. Now I'm talking about it on the podcast. And still, be sure, all through February and March, I want a shirt. Well, then read my stuff. You like my stuff enough to be a designated eater? Every once in a while, check in with me. I might have something for you. I'm not trying to be all sensitive, but sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm here all year. Check in with me.
There you have it. Prior to January 31st, benjamin.hill@mlb.com. If you are a past designated eater, get in touch with Ben and get hooked up with the shirt with the logo, and you'll be part of a very exclusive fraternity to own a designated eater shirt. And that'll do it. Ben, promo schedules and all that kind of stuff still flying by, and so we'll continue to have more in the hopper as we get closer to spring training and opening day with all the craziness that is set to roll out for 2017. Thanks, dude.
Hey, my pleasure, and you're right. I was even seeing it today. There's things are really going to heat up in terms of things to look forward to in 2017, and each week we'll have more to talk about than we did the week before until the season starts.
Seventh-ranked Marlins prospect Thomas Jones joining the show a little while ago. He's at Thomas Jones08 on Twitter, and Benjamin Hill is at Ben's Biz, and that'll do it. Episode number 94. Thomas Jones was a ton of fun.
He was a ton of fun. He was one of those interviews. I got to be honest, I didn't know much about him. Didn't know what to expect when we booked him, and he, for lack of a better word, knocked it out. And yeah, so that. I think that's, like my question said, I don't think he's somebody a lot of Marlins fans know much about, and hopefully that was kind of illuminating for them. He was actually our first Marlins prospect on the podcast.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, a little embarrassing because we're on episode 94 now, but no, he was definitely a good one, and wishing him all the best for the next year. There's one thing I want to touch before we leave, because Ben said it, and it's got me thinking. He's got designated eaters. Like, what would our version of that be?
Oh, like somebody to fill in on the podcast or something?
Is that what it would be? I'm trying to think of it. Or would it be like a designated listener who just like listens and tells everybody else what happened that week?
Yeah. Or like listens and just tells us everything that was wrong in the episode. Like they used to do with Stat Boy on Pardon the Interruption. Do they still do that? I don't know. I haven't watched that show since like 2006. I would assume they still do it.
I don't think they ever replaced Reality. I think once Reality moved over to Around the Horn, they never replaced him.
We could have that. I
do like that.
Designated listener who just points out all of our flaws in every episode. Actually, I do want to point out there was a Twitter listener who got in touch last week. We had a technical issue a couple of weeks ago. I got a new production computer set up for the show, and we had a listener get in touch and tell us about some of the issues with audio levels. And if you guys ever have issues like that, we love that feedback. You can email us, podcast@milb.com. You can tweet at us, whatever, because we're all about trying to make this the best possible podcast. And so now I can't remember the guy's name, and I tweet way too much to go back and try to find it, but you know who you are, and I really appreciate it. He also said that one of the reasons why he can't adjust the volume generally when he listens is because he's walking two like 2-year-old Newfoundlands, I think is what he said. So it's not really, volume control isn't really an option for him, which I totally get, but I appreciate that from that guy. And yeah, maybe we should invite him on. He can be a designated listener for us.
Yeah, I mean, if I was walking 2 Canadian provinces, that I would imagine it would be pretty difficult.
It's very
I'm
heavy.
Sorry, the joke was just sitting there. Yeah.
Labradors, Newfoundlands.
Oh,
they got the whole thing cornered up there with
Prince Edward Islands.
Dog breeds that are also provinces.
Yeah. British
Columbia's. Never mind.
No, it doesn't work anymore. It all fell apart.
I ran it so poorly into the ground. So yeah, we'll do that. Designated listeners, we'll have somebody come up with a logo that's just me and Sam with headphones on. And actually, I guess it wouldn't be us with headphones on. It'd be the other person with headphones on.
It's all right. We'll workshop this.
Now I'm just rambling.
If anybody wants to come up with a logo of what a designated listener would be, we'll figure something out for you.
One thing that I do want to tease, and by the time you listen to this, I believe it will be up on the site, but MilbStore.com is rolling out 3 brand new additions to the hometown collection of minor league hats. This is maybe my favorite thing that MilbStore does, which is they go back into the archives, they dig up an old logo, an old hat, and they reproduce it. So in limited quantities, 3 new hats are up at MilbStore.com starting on Thursday, depending on when you're listening to this, on Thursday the 26th. They are awesome. I'm not going to tell you which ones they are because they're not released as of when we're recording this, but they will be tomorrow. But they're fantastic. We're going to have a blog post up at milperspective.com about those, and you can check out the store. They're just very Tyler Mon nerdy Milb hats. If you follow me on Twitter, you've seen which ones they are.
Right. We didn't tell you that we made this especially for you, Tyler.
It really seems like it was, which as I've discovered over the last 2 weeks, I'm like the most annoying person in the office who's not actually in the office. So I can't imagine it's true. But if somebody would have been like, let's go into Tyler's head and pick out 3 hats that we can remake for Hometown Collection, these 3 would probably legitimately be it. So
I would think so. One of the teams, it's kind of sad. They would have been in the path of totality.
They would have. Yeah. Yeah.
And they would have been a perfect team for the path of totality.
They would have been maybe the perfect team other than the Fireflies with a glow-in-the-dark logo. But keep that in mind because that has a tie-in to one of those teams. So check it out, milbstore.com. And is that all, Sam? Is that it? Not all?
I think that's all. I think we packed this with everything we have.
94. This is a good one. Thanks to Thomas Jones. Thanks to Benjamin Hill. And thanks to you for tuning in as well. Sam Dykstra for being the brains behind the operation. We'll talk to you next week on episode number 95.